Hello, it's Ross from the Center of Balance and Effective Communication. I am so excited to share and visit with you tonight because we're talking about a great thinker, Peter Block. And those of you in business may know Peter Block pretty clearly. Early on, 80s, 90s, there wasn't another consultant in business more famous, better than Peter Block. I mean, he was, if they say this, do that. If they do that, do this. And he had it dialed. I mean, he drew the lines between, if you're a consultant, what's the difference between consulting and managing, and how you go back and forth across that line, and how you maintain your power to help people do what's really right for them. Peter Block's book, Flawless Consulting, was over the moon. And it even had organizational charts. It went down through conversations. If they say this, say that. If it goes this way, go here. Circle back to here. Brilliant. Way, way ahead of its time. Truly handled all accountability. It handled archetypes. It was just fantastic. Then Peter Block kind of disappears for a while. And I have my own opinions about what happened. My belief is that he grew. And in his growth, his next book is a masterpiece. And the book is, The Answer to How is Yes. The answer to how is yes. What he's saying in that book is that if someone comes to you and they need information, they are questing for something you have, some knowledge, they need some leadership. He says if you're going to answer their question, you are disempowering them. So when they show up and say how, you say yes. And then you get into a series of questions to reframe that person and that person's search. And he said there are three things about a great question. Three profound things about asking better questions. He said the key to the quality of our life is going to be based on the quality of the questions we ask. And number one, he said a great question is ambiguous. Now think about that for a second. Ambiguous. It's not real clear. And how often when we start a search, we start looking for this or that and we need the right answer and we need to nail it down. No, he says it's ambiguous. And in that ambiguity, he's saying there are many right questions, many quality questions, and most of the great questions are paradoxical. And he says the process of creating the question and asking the question and then going to answer the question, that process is as important as any answer you'll ever get. He said you will learn a good question and what it is when you learn to write one, when you learn to create one. Think about that. So first, a great question is ambiguous. Secondly, a great question is it's personal. You're not going to spin up some great question about the cosmos. It's going to be personal to you. All persons and your connections to a question discloses a tremendous amount about you, about the person developing the question. And he says vulnerability is expansive in the search. Listen to that again. Vulnerability is expansive in the search of a great question, in the process of a great question. Accountability, right? It's personal. And thirdly, a great question is it carries a great implication of individual accountability. Accountability. What are you going to do? Who's going to do it? We each are responsible for creating a situation that we are in. Now listen to these. He's talking about business, and then he's a man that restructures use of people and time and government processes in developing quality programs within cities now. But he knows it comes down to individuals and individual questions. So again, we are each responsible for creating the situation we are in. And he says, secondly, we are sustaining our own internal and external culture. It's one of the great sentences I've ever heard, that we are responsible for our internal and our external culture. And we sustain that. We believe the stories we tell about ourselves. We believe the roles we've accepted. And really, he's saying, as you break them apart in great questioning, all that stuff is available to be rethought. And lastly, he said, what are you willing to do and participate in differently? That's Peter Block. The answer to how is yes. It's a great book. And the messages in it are as epic in the search to doing things differently and accountability and responsibility as you begin to question, change your life, change the process, change the work you're in, change whatever. This man is a great guide. And notice it left the linear nature of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, where he was the master, to the open end of the answer to how is yes. Peter Block is a great one, and I just love sharing his messages. I'm Ross Cook, with the Center for Balance and Effective Communication. Please do something differently today. We'll talk again soon. And Jomo.